Okay, do we have any adjustments or additions to our agenda tonight?
Nothing at this moment, no.
Welcome. Come in, have a seat. So all our members received an electronic version of the minutes from November 1st and should have had a chance to read over those. If there are any changes, we need to note those at this time. If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval. Motion for approval is written. Second by Mr. Oliver. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, these minutes are accepted. Okay, this time we will move into our public comment section. What we're going to do tonight, I know we've received some public comment for one of the items under new business, so we will save the comment for those items to that part of the agenda. So at this time, we will hear any other public comments that are non-related to the commercial subdivision.
We've received a couple of comments emailed in to us. Friday, January 13th. After listening to the past 4 years of planning, Board of Adjustments, and Town Council meetings, I have to say that last night's vote to not renew Sherry Hill's appointment to the Planning Committee was one of the most irresponsible decisions to date. She has been a phenomenal, knowledgeable leader and committee member. You will be very hard pressed to find another person to fill her shoes, and the town of Mills River will pay dearly for this decision. Midday Thursday, I was passing by the once projected food truck site. There seemed to be a meeting of 4 or 5 men. I travel that route once or twice a day and have never seen people there. Coincidence? Maybe, or maybe not. Considering the conversation last night that led to that pivotal and, in my mind, ill-advised assignment vote. Sounds to me like council is basing their leadership on ego rather than what is good for our town. Susan Cunningham. Tuesday, January 24th. This email is to address the comments Jeff Young said about the chair of the planning board, Sherry Hill, at the last council meeting. Having watched most of the planning board meetings over the past 2.5 years, I was shocked to hear Mr. Young's words about Sherry Hill. I have never witnessed that type of behavior he was referring to. So giving Mr. Young the benefit of the doubt, I circled back to watch the last 2 planning board meetings again before I drafted this email. After reviewing, I can honestly say that I heard nothing inappropriate with Sherry Hill's responses, nor her tone of voice. She exhibited the same professional behavior she always does, and quite seamlessly followed the decorum such responsibility demands. The only section to which I can surmise Mr. Young was referring was in the October meeting. In the manner that she always does when she has personal opinions, she stated her frustration in an undeniably professional manner and then moved on to do the business at hand, which was to revisit text amendments regarding food trucks and parks, per the request of the council. Not once was she dismissive or disparaging of the council. She was not using her position to poison the well before any discussion happened, as Mr. Young stated at the council meeting. Mr. Young said she was trying to influence the planning board and that her opinions get the best of her, and she was using the microphone to taint things that shouldn't. What Mr. Young has said about Mrs. Hill's conduct during the planning board meeting is simply not true and can be easily witnessed through the public domain videos on the internet. Before the final vote, Mr. Young, an appointed council member, stated, "We are in the business of politics. If Mr. Young is only interested in the game of politics and not the true meaning of politics, activities of the governance of a town, as a taxpayer, I can state emphatically that I do not appreciate Mr. Young playing games when the future of Mills River is at stake. Sincerely, Betty Dorn, 56 East Chippendale Drive." Now I get to say something. I would just like to say that it's been my pleasure to work with Sherry, and I've learned so much from her and the entire planning board. A great planning board member is one who does their homework and comes prepared to each meeting, and Sherry has always done that. She has been a dedicated member of the planning board since 2014, and I look forward to working with her in the future. Patty Bratton.
that all the public comment that we have?
for that.
Okay. Just personally, thank you to Ms. Cunningham, and Ms. Dorn for writing in. I don't know either of you personally. I appreciate you taking the time to write in and express your support of this position. And thank you, Patty, as well, for taking the time to do that. Okay, so we have no old business for this evening. Our new business will start with the election of a chairperson and vice chair of the planning board. We find ourselves in a little bit of an interesting situation tonight. One of our new council members who was appointed back in 2022 is unable to take his seat and be sworn in at this time. So that leaves us with 6 members. We also, of course, have Mr. Abbott, who was not able to attend tonight. And then tonight will be my last night on the board as well. So we're actually 3 people who would play a legitimate role in that are not feasibly here. So we have some options. We can go ahead and elect a chair and vice chair if that is what you guys prefer to do, or we can postpone that election until the next meeting in March, and that is certainly acceptable. Quite frankly, in my opinion, I think that would probably be advisable. So I'm assuming that would need a motion if that's what we would like to do. Okay, Mr. Oliver has made the motion that we postpone election of chair and vice chair to the next planning board meeting. Do I get a second? Have a second by Mr. Moore. All in favor? Aye. That is unanimous. So we will postpone that. You guys will postpone that to the next meeting. Okay, so our next order of new business is a commercial subdivision M-22-02 at 0 Marlowe Drive, because no address has been assigned at this point. So we'll let Mr. Malachek give us an overview. And then after the overview, the public comment regarding that particular subdivision, we'll hear what's been emailed in, and if anyone signed up, we'll let you speak at that time as well.
Sounds great. Just a reminder to the planning board members, please make sure everyone has their microphones on for the discussion portion of this item. So good evening. A little background. I'll summarize my staff report as I usually do for those listening online and in the audience. So we did receive a zoning permit application for commercial construction of a 10,000 square foot warehouse on the subject property on November 2nd of last year. The zoning permit application came in first. Staff met with the applicant over the following months, and that's when we basically stated that subdivision was part of the plans as well. So the subdivision application actually came in December 5th of 22 after the zoning permit application for the new commercial structure. So the proposed subdivision before you tonight would create 2 lots out of an existing single parcel, 1.94 acres. And it's almost equally divided. One lot at the front will be 0.9 acres in size, and then the lot in the rear will be 1.04 acres in size, served by a 30-foot wide driveway access easement through the front lot. So again, just for the new board members and those listening, so we classify subdivisions as 4 different types: minor subdivisions, 10 lots or fewer; major subdivisions or residential subdivisions, 11 lots or more; and then we have family subdivisions and non-standard. But per town subdivision regulations, all commercial subdivisions have to be reviewed by the planning board under the procedure for major residential subdivisions, and it doesn't matter the number of lots proposed for to be subdivided. So again, the Boer subdivision is technically a minor commercial subdivision because there's only 1 new lot, but it's being reviewed and is before the planning board tonight under the major subdivision process per the town subdivision code. So as we've done with other subdivisions, town always does the administrative review, and we've worked with the applicant, Mr. Boer, to revise a site plan that is compliant with our current requirements. And again, the planning board's role tonight is to make sure all town code requirements and development requirements, subdivision requirements have been met. So a little more about the subject property. It's currently zoned mixed use, which does allow for this type of development by right. I always like to highlight the Making Mills River plan for the area, since it's our guiding land use document. It's interesting because the area is split up between two of our future land use districts. So the subject property is within the mixed residential district, and that describes future land uses, single family development, low density, multifamily development, and neighborhood oriented uses and businesses. But just across the street, basically directly adjacent to it, is the community center district in the future land use map, and that calls out desirable uses as a mix of uses, including commercial, residential, industrial, and agricultural. It's a relatively simple development plan and subdivision before you tonight, so we have reviewed it and find that it is compliant with town subdivision standards. There is a private well, so private utilities are available, well water is available, and private septic is also available in suitable soils at the back corner of the lot. Building setbacks are met. One thing I'll call out is you'll see, because this lot is removed from the roadway, the normal 60-foot front yard setback does not apply. It's basically considered a side yard. So the setbacks for this property would be 30 feet all the way around, and it is compliant with those standards. Parking standards are met, landscaping requirements. You'll see the zoning buffer areas added into the plan. And again, we found it has met all other subdivision ordinance requirements. In your packet, the subdivision application is attachment A. The preliminary subdivision plat for your consideration tonight is attachment B. And then we have the zoning permit application and site plan as attachment C. The private utility availability is attachment D. And then we did provide public notice per the major subdivision process. So certificate of mailing those letters is attachment E. I'm happy to entertain any questions, or we can move to public comment.
Does anyone have any questions before we hear public comment? We may have some after that, I don't.
Hey, Michael, would you tell me again the Making Mills River plan, the surrounding or the neighboring? Because it's by right today.
Correct. I just like to mention it because it's
I
an
like to hear it,
important
yeah.
planning document for us.
Yeah.
It does not affect the board's decision tonight. Because again, we're reviewing against the development and subdivision codes, but the property itself is in the mixed residential district. And again, that calls for future desirable uses as single family, low density multifamily, and neighborhood oriented uses and businesses. But literally the adjacent parcel to the west, which includes the liquidation store and other businesses, is the community center district, which calls for a mix of uses, including commercial, residential, industrial, and agricultural.
Thank you.
I have a bit of a question. I'm confused, I think. Since it's by right, he can do what he's applying for by right already, right?
By right just means it's a permitted use in the mixed use zoning district. And
Yeah,
as you may know, the mixed use zoning district is very open in terms of the uses we allow. It actually states all uses are allowed, residential and commercial, and then has prohibited uses. So again, a commercial 10,000 square foot building would be a by right permitted use, still requiring a zoning permit because it's a new structure, and still requiring subdivision review because it's a new subdivision.
yeah.
But the use itself is permitted.
So well, I see, the warehouse, nice 10,000 square foot warehouse is what he wants to build. And why are we here? We can already build it.
Well, the applicant wishes to subdivide the land. And again, because town code requires any commercial subdivision, doesn't matter the size or what type of development.
Okay, so he'll be able to build his building, good, and he'll have an extra parcel that could be sold or used for something else, right?
That's correct. And we're here tonight specifically for the subdivision approval, but as we've done in the past, we always, for major subdivisions, we do include the zoning permit application and
Yeah,
development plan
okay.
as part of that, like we did with the Party Outpatient Surgery Center.
Is this subdivided lot, is it within the architectural overlay or is that closer to town?
It's a little closer to the highway. So the last time I measured, it was outside of it. Yeah.
Anyone else have any specific questions at this time? Okay, why don't we hear public comment now and we'll go from there.
To whom it may concern, we at Triple B do not object to the subdivision of 0 Marlow Drive, but we do have major concerns about the traffic flow. With us, 34 Sterling Place, ABL 24 Sterling Place, and the Landing Depot 18 Sterling Place. The traffic flow on both Marlow Drive and Sterling Place is just about at its limit. Sterling Place opens up to the 0 Marlow Drive property, and we are worried that this will be the traffic flow that is used. Please consider doing a traffic study or at least come out and look at the arrangements of our driveways and parking areas. If Marlow Drive was opened up and all new traffic flow for this property was directed in that direction, we would have no concerns at all. Respectfully submitted, Scott Baker. Scott and Greg Baker, co-owners of Triple B, 34 Sterling Place. February 7th. To the planning board, I, Michael J. Mamone of 220 Marlow Drive, have no objection to the subdivision of M2202. I do, however, have concerns with the proposed uses and possible increased traffic on the private drive that is used to access the property in question. Currently, there is only a 16-foot easement on my property from the end of Marlow Drive through my property and the property directly north owned by Greg Fox. When the Landing Depot moved into the building at 18 Sterling Place, traffic greatly increased on the private drive, and numerous cars per day were turning around on my property and the Fox property. The number of vehicles using the private drive has decreased with the use of signage, but we still have the traffic intended for the Landing Depot and ABO. If it is intended to use the 16-foot easement as access to a commercial business, I oppose such usage as it will place a greater burden on the upkeep of the dirt and gravel access road, as well as negatively impacting the use and enjoyment of my property. There is also the issue of utilities to my property being above the easement. There has been numerous times communications wirings have been severed by large vehicles. The power line was also ripped from the house on one occasion. If it is intended to use the access from Sterling Lane through the existing access, I have no objection. Sincerely, Michael J. Mamone, 220 Marlow Drive.
Is there any other public comment on this particular subdivision?
Could you come to the microphone?
Okay, can you hang on just a moment? So do you, well, no, do you have public comment that you'd like to make? If so, you need to come to the microphone and let us know who you are and you can get yourself together there. If you'll just state your name, please. and
My
where you
name
live.
is Angela Whiteside. Okay, my name is Angela Whiteside. And I own a property. I don't know if it's the same part you're talking about. I'm kind of confused. It's called 0 Marlow Drive.
Correct, because there was no address assigned at this time.
I mean, that's what my dad had it before I did.
Okay,
And that's what it's always been called. But I don't know anything about a community building, so I'm kind of confused. There's a part of the two parcels that connect to the highway. There is a 1.49 acre, and then there's a 0.43 acre. And then there's also another lot that has 3 lots on it that goes beside the highway. The only one I look at that says 0 Marlow Lane is the 1.49 and the 0.43 on my tax records. So I don't know if that's what you're talking about or not.
that's a great question. I will let Mr. Melichek address that because I don't have access to that information.
So let me clarify, are you concerned that this action relates to your property?
Yeah,
Okay, it does not.
okay. That's a relief. I got a letter saying to
Um,
come if it did. So I was kind of confused.
Oh, well, we send public notice letters to any adjacent property owner, and actually, if you look at the screen up here. Mr. Boer's property is the 1.94 acre one, and yours is actually the triangle
Yeah,
back
he is
here.
right behind.
And that
up
is
on the
why you
hill,
received
the
the
other side of the
letter.
Creek, right?
Correct, and that's why we mailed you a letter, just to
Okay.
notify you an adjacent
So it doesn't
property.
affect my properties at all.
Correct, just that an
Okay.
adjacent property owner is subdividing and
Well,
developing.
that's a relief. Thank you.
No worries.
We do appreciate you coming tonight.
Okay, is there any other public comment from anyone out here that perhaps signed up or did not sign up? Okay, so we've heard public comment that was emailed in. Are there questions now regarding?
And sorry, the applicant is also here if you wish for him to.
Yeah, I thought so.
And this might be a question for the applicant.
Do you mind to come
Sure.
on up?
Some
Welcome.
concerns, yeah, welcome. There were some concerns about the access
Right.
and, would you be willing to walk us through the access, you know, how you get there, basically? Maybe the overhead would help.
Right. Basically, I spoke with Greg Fox today. He only had, the only concerns he had were about, he wanted me to plant a buffer there, which is already part of the landscaping thing. And also he was concerned about the access. The majority of the access will be going down Sterling Place and turning up in there. All this, you know, if there's ever a semi,
Mhm.
Amazon trucks, all that stuff, they're not going to go through there. In fact, I spoke with Greg about, we're going to put a lot more intimidating sign. Miss Martin has lived there. I actually my brother and I bought that property from Greg Fox, one of the guys that wrote the letter there. We bought that property from him 30 years ago. And his mom lives right there in a modular home, and we've been neighbors for 30 years. I'm not gonna do anything to upset. You know, I've got a good access back there on the paved road. Only people will be using Marlowe Drive will be the same people that are using it now, pretty much. And like I said, and you know, with that store right there, there's a lot of people that people drive all over the place. Anywhere they can get their car, they drive. But we're gonna, you know, told Greg basically put a sign, you know, a little bit more forceful sign, you know, private property, don't enter. And that way, the only people that would be going down the road is the people that know that it's okay. I mean, I can't give up the right of way, because if you give it up, you never get it back, you know. As far as Sterling Place, I rarely ever see two cars on Sterling Place at one time. I sold the Greg and Triple B right there. I sold them that building that they're in, and the road going up into the subject property we're talking about was there when they bought the, you know, and you know, they make mention of the fact that they're really, really concerned about traffic and all this stuff. Well, their business is booming. And so what are we talking about? They can keep bringing more traffic in there, but I can, you know, my traffic's gonna be a problem. You know, the traffic's not gonna be a problem. Access in that whole area is excellent. And I'm not gonna put a retail, it's not really suitable for a retail type of thing anyway. It's gonna be a warehouse is what it's gonna be. Probably not that much traffic going to it. And I spoke with Greg and them, Greg and Scott 3 or 4 days ago, and reiterated to them that, you know, some of the traffic's gonna be coming in up there on the upper side, the traffic that's already there. And, you know, traffic's not a problem. I mean, they kind of made it sound like it is, but there's rarely two cars on that road at the same time. It's two lanes wide. You know, I address the road maintenance with them and everything. They've been good neighbors. They bought that building from me 5 years ago, I guess, but they were in that front building where 24 Sterling is for another 15 years before that. So we've never had one crossword between any of us. And I don't really foresee any, you know,
Yes.
everybody, you know, and it's human nature. I'm the same way. When you've been somewhere for a while and all of a sudden you see something happen across the road, your first instinct is to, you know, oh my gosh, something's, you know, this is gonna be bad. This is gonna be bad. Well, you know.
Yeah,
like
I'm
s-
going to Buncombe County Board of Adjustments tomorrow for 2 projects. And I'll be talking traffic. So, yeah, I totally understand concerns and you explained it. I
Yeah.
just wanted to get it pictured in my mind.
Right, yes, sir.
And this would not come anywhere near triggering a traffic impact analysis for the traffic study. Someone requested that, and that's just, that's a lot more of an intense use that would trigger that. So
Yes,
this
sir.
does not.
Another thing too, like, Mr. Melchek made mention of the neighbor, you know, it's different on this side of the road than it is on that side of the road. Well, this side of the road that we're talking about, my brother and I own that property together. We were both on a deed. We split it up 6 months ago just because, you know, both of us are in our sixties now. But as far as this side of the road is different than that side of the road. This side of the road right here has a 7,200 square foot warehouse that we built 25 years ago. That's on the piece of property that we're now talking about is not, you know, is different. So I'm not sure exactly how that, you know, how that would pan out, but anyway,
So just for clarification, vehicles going to the warehouse would not be using Marlowe Drive as their access. They would turn onto Sterling Place before the landing depot.
right.
And then just,
The only
is
people,
there a cut across that goes over to your property then from Sterling?
yes, ma'am. Yeah, it goes up in there. The only people would, excuse me, the only people would be using Marlowe Drive would be the people that,
Who live there,
yeah, well.
once they get past the landing
You know,
depot.
people that work, even people who are working there, say, you know, there's 2 or 3 guys working in the warehouse. Because there's gonna be such a sign there that anybody else is gonna be like, well, I can't go back in there. The only people that are gonna know they can drive through there is people that, you know, are regulars there. Yes, ma'am.
Does anyone have any additional questions?
I think that answered my questions.
Yeah.
It said like 2
Right.
cars can pass there.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's a paved road, plenty wide for 2 vehicles.
And the large trucks would be on Sterling.
Oh, yeah, there won't be any semis
Yeah.
going through there.
Anyone else?
Yeah, for my question.
Welcome to have a seat.
Great, thank you.
So our role tonight as the planning board is to either approve the development plan and preliminary subdivision plat as it is presented. We can approve it with conditions, or we can table it for up to 30 days for additional consideration. So what would be your pleasure?
I'll make a motion that we approve the development plan and preliminary subdivision plat as submitted.
So we have a motion to approve
I
as submitted.
second.
Second, all in favor? Right?
Aye.
Thank you. So that is the end of our new business. We are moving on to additional items for this evening. Does staff have any additional items for us?
We do have a couple additional items. I have a staff report prepared for the planning board, but I think we have something first going on. I'll defer to the clerks.
Mr. Austin, would you come up to the podium, please?
Good evening. My name's Randy Austin. I come to you as a citizen of Mills River this evening. As a resident of Mills River, I'd like to thank you all for what you do here on the planning board. I sat in your seat for 9 years, so I know it's a thankless job a lot of times. Somebody asked me one time what I thought made a good planning board member. And a few of the things I jotted down today that I remember telling, I probably told them a bunch of other stuff, but organization, I think makes a great planning board member, not only in your material that you use, but in your thoughts that you use to make decisions. Being very persuasive, I think makes a good planning board member also, because without the votes, you're never going to get your ideals across or get them to go anywhere. But being also respectful of everybody else's opinions also. And ask a lot of questions. I really appreciate it whenever I see y'all ask Michael questions. I make him earn his money. And there's no stupid questions. I told somebody else that one time, you know, if you don't know what you don't know. And you won't ever know unless you ask the question. And, you know, just, you've got, as being a planning board member, I think you have to try to think about what you want Mills River to be 20 years down the road. Because a lot of the times you're making decisions that will affect what the town looks like down the road. So I said all this, said all that to say this. Sherry, if you want to come up here, I got a plaque I would like to present to you. And I think Sherry's been an excellent planning board member. She's met all the stuff that I've written down and spoke about this evening, plus a lot that I'll never be able to say. So this is just a little thing we appreciate. Thank you.
Well, I do appreciate that gesture from the town, and I appreciate your kind words, Councilman Austin. Since we're in this avenue of conversation, I do want to just take a personal moment myself and say a few things. Had to write it down so I wouldn't get sidetracked, but as you've already heard this evening, when this meeting is adjourned, my appointment to the planning board will end. So before I go, there are a few things I'd like to say. First, I want to express my gratitude to all town staff with whom I've served. You guys do the lion's share of behind the scenes work that allows this board to do its job. I appreciate all the support and guidance offered to me over the years and your willingness to answer any questions I've ever had. Second, to my fellow board members, thank you for being invested enough in our town to serve. Though you may face long meetings, contentious topics, and difficult interpretations, if you come prepared and do your best, you will be doing what you were appointed to do. It's been an honor to serve alongside each of you. Third, to the citizens of Mills River, I want you to know that it has been my privilege to represent you on this planning board. Contrary to what has been insinuated, I didn't arrive on the planning board with a personal agenda. Instead, it has been my goal to listen to you as citizens and to do my best to reflect your desired direction and goals for our town. I have never been a puppet to deep pockets or generational entitlement, but have fought for people like me, people who simply want to preserve this place we love and call home. In spite of the challenges it may incur, I hope many of our citizens will consider serving in the future. Your voices are important. Of course, I do have opinions. Volunteer service doesn't require that we leave our opinions at the door. However, my opinions do not get the best of me, as Councilman Cantrell stated. As a matter of fact, I suspect most of us apply to the board because we have opinions. It is those opinions that allow us to have a well-rounded conversation that examines all angles. I believe town council should embrace that concept rather than try to extinguish it. Quite frankly, the idea that I could poison the well before the conversation started, as Councilman Young stated, does a great disservice to the people with whom I serve, who are all quite capable of thinking independently and analyzing situations for themselves. That's exactly why we have a diverse group of 7 people to represent a diverse population. And to imply anything else is insulting to each of us. In reflecting on my tenure on the planning board, I can honestly say I wouldn't change a thing. I have served with transparency, integrity, and equity, with an accurate interpretation of the code of ordinances always in mind. Any comments found to be offensive could only be so to those whom they described. When Councilman Young was appointed to town council last year, I told several people my reappointment was in jeopardy. Knowing that, I could have chosen not to seek reappointment, but in doing so would have given the impression that it didn't matter. I wanted all of you to know that it does matter and that I desired to continue. Unfortunately, as Councilman Cantrell so succinctly put it, it's politics. And that's a game I don't play. But make no mistake, small town, good old boys club politics are still alive and well in Mills River. And I believe to the detriment of our town. But to finish on a positive note, we have accomplished some good things during my time on the planning board. We navigated and continued to function through a global pandemic. I am particularly pleased with our collaboration on the Making Mills River 2040 Comprehensive Plan, as well as the establishment of an architectural overlay district. We have been able to get a noise ordinance in the books, as well as a more encompassing traffic impact analysis requirement. These items will serve our town well moving forward. While I will no longer be serving from this side of the table, rest assured I will continue to stay involved from the other side. Ecclesiastes 3:1 says, "To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven." As this season ends, I will be seeking the purpose the Lord has for me next. So any other items, Mr. Malachek?
Just a brief update. I just wanted to notify the planning board that the watershed ordinance that you all have also worked so hard on was adopted December of last year. So that is currently in place. The public governmental sign exemption text amendment was also adopted by council with some minor modifications to the language in December of last year. And I'm not sure if anyone's followed the current council meetings, but the food park text amendment or of the temporary vendor ordinance went before council at their last meeting, but due to an absence, that hearing has been recessed until this current Thursday. So many of the text amendments you all have worked on so hard have been passed or are continuing through the process. Two other minor updates. The townhomes have broken ground on Jeffress Road. So if you're seeing construction activity there, that's what that is. Currently, it's more of the grading and grubbing work. But they are going to begin more intense construction in the next couple of weeks. And then we have received plans for the Legacy project also on Jeffress Road. Those are currently being revised and another submittal is sent to the town. But again, another big development project on Jeffress Road coming down the pipeline. And then lastly, I wanted to introduce our new planning technician, Kevin Webb. As you know, we had a new full-time position funded in last year's budget cycle. And after a long search, we were able to find a great candidate locally in the Henderson County area. And so Kevin's going to be focusing on day-to-day support, permitting, and specifically right now, code enforcement. So if you got your complaints, get them in and get this guy to work. But we all welcome him, and honestly, he's a great employee, and I'm happy to have the support. So thank you. That's all I have.
So that brings us to the final motion of the evening.
Well, before I make a motion, if I make the motion, I would just like to thank you, Sherry, for the work you've done, for the leadership you've given, for the encouragement you've given, for just being here consistently and just doing what you do. Always be grateful. Look forward to seeing you out there
You'll see.
with encouragement.
I like to echo Jeff's comment.
Thank you. All right, who's got the motion?
I'll second that with also saying I appreciate you. You leading the planning board, you've done a great job.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Will you make a motion?
I will.
We're to the end of the table here.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Monster. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you.